Who is the most enigmatic golfer in the history of the game? Many names come to mind from past and present: Mo Norman, Seve Ballesteros, Bryson DeChambeau, Ted Ray, Walter Hagen. But for pure mystery, there's only one contender, a golfer who entered very few competitions, had limited success in those competitions, and yet still holds a fascination and an air of mystique over 80 years later. Just who was Gloria Minoprio and what became of her? But wait, before you click away, there's a fascinating story to be told here about a woman who both shocked and inspired those who saw her play. But first, we need to paint the scene of her most dramatic entrance into golf's consciousness. In October 1933, the English Women's Amateur Championship was being held at Royal North Devon Golf Club. The day before she was due to play her second round match, having received a bye in the first round, Gloria Minoprio had stated that she would play all her shots with just one club. Reportedly, it was a cleek, which is around a 1 or 2 iron, but more on that later. On Tuesday, the 3rd of October, around noon, a yellow Rolls-Royce drew up amid a cloud of dust. The door opened, and out stepped the tall figure of Gloria Minoprio. All eyes followed her with fascination, for she was wearing a blue beret, turtleneck sweater, scarlet waist-length jacket, and trousers. A large press contingent was there after the unusual statement the previous day that Gloria was going to use just one club, but nobody was prepared for a lady wearing trousers. Gloria Minoprio was an unknown in the world of golf. She hadn't played in any competitions prior to this day and had only started playing 3 years earlier after picking up a cleat while convalescing and being fascinated at how many shots she could play with just this one club. She was a member at Littlestone Golf Club but played all her golf alone or with her coach and never entered any club competitions. The press had been tipped off to expect something unusual and were there in numbers. Gloria Minoprio walked to the first tee where a crowd had gathered, agog at the sight of this unknown golfer, wearing white face powder and bright red lipstick. Gloria arrived at the tee and handed her jacket to her caddy, as she had the honour. Her caddy also carried a bag of balls, a yellow duster to clean the club between shots, and a spare cleek in case her first broke during play. She tapped a spot on the ground with the toe of her club, and there the caddy teed her ball. Imagine the scene. This startling figure must have caused consternation among the traditionalist minds of golf's establishment, and would no doubt have unnerved her opponent for the day, Miss Nancy Halstead. But now an even greater moment of anticipation had arrived. Gloria had to make the first stroke at her ball under the critical gaze of all those there attended. This was to be her first shot in public, and anything but a good shot would mean ridicule. The first tee at Royal North Devon requires a carry over a stream, roughly 50 yards from the tee. To put the ball into its waters would have been mortifying. Taking her stance, Minoprio proceeded to swish her club backwards and forwards while keeping her eyes fixed on the ball. When ready, she held the cleat just off the ground before making her swing, finishing perfectly balanced with head held high looking down the fairway, where she must have been very relieved to see her ball flying far and true, over the stream and into the middle of the fairway. Her opponent, Nancy Halstead, was a well-known scratch player, and she too found the fairway and then the green with her second and won the hole, followed by the second and third holes, but Minoprio won the fourth, even after visiting a bunker. It might be imagined that the game would be over very quickly, but Minoprio lasted until the 15th green, where Halstead's first putt was played dead and Minoprio conceded. After politely thanking her opponent, the first words she'd spoken since saying "How do you do" on the first tee, Minoprio walked over to the waiting yellow Rolls-Royce, which had recently delivered her to the first tee, climbed in and was driven swiftly away. While she'd lost the match, in terms of publicity, Gloria Minoprio couldn't have achieved a greater success. The papers were full of it. The Daily Express stated, "Miss Gloria Minoprio opened a sensational new chapter in women's golf. She is the first player, either man or woman, to play in a championship with one club only, and no woman has ever before defied convention by playing in trousers. The Ladies' Golf Union was up in arms. Their chairman issued a statement saying that she deplored any change from the traditional golfing attire. But some of her fellow players supported her, saying that Minoprio was awfully brave, had a nice swing and was a good player. More details about Minoprio's early life, her career in magic and her later life can be found in an excellent article by Sunday Times sports correspondent Nick Pitt, which was posted in a blog by Rhod McEwan. I'll post a link to this in the description below. Gloria Minoprio briefly disappeared from the golfing world, but appeared again the next year when she entered the 1934 English Championship, held at Seacroft in Lincolnshire. Her entrance was equally theatrical, and the press were there in even greater numbers than the year before. This time she actually won her first match, played against an overawed Betty Somerville, who was making her championship debut at just 19 years old. Somerville said of the match, "When I saw the draw in the paper, I nearly had a fit. It was like playing a supernatural being. She was not a bit friendly. She never spoke." Minoprio took the lead on the first hole and never lost it, concluding the match on the 17th green to become the first person to win a championship match using just one club. In the second round, she was up against Mary Johnson, an England international, and Johnson proved too good, winning the match comfortably. Having established herself in the golfing world, Minoprio decided that magic was to be her next project, and she studied and practiced tirelessly, sponsored by Herbert Weld, becoming a very accomplished magician. Her speciality was card tricks and sleight of hand. She continued to compete in the English Women's Amateur Championship, winning another first-round match in 1936, and produced two fine stroke play rounds to qualify for the match play rounds of the British Open Championship at Southport and Ainsdale that same year. And further success was achieved in 1938. Gloria Minoprio was clearly a determined and very talented individual, and who knows what she could have achieved had she not stuck to her self-imposed handicap of using just the one club. The arrival of the Second World War seems to have marked the end to Gloria's competitive golf career, and she slipped from the public eye. In 1950 she contracted septicemia and died in Nassau in the Bahamas, aged 50. That brings us to the end of this brief look at golf's most enigmatic player. If you'd like to learn more, then I can again recommend the excellent blog linked in the description below. For the on-course section of this video, there's really only one thing I can do, and that is to try and emulate Gloria Minoprio's one-club play. And here comes the discussion on that club which I alluded to earlier. I filmed the on-course section of this video before finishing the research, and as I'd read about a cleat being her club, I naturally assumed that it was a hickory-shafted club, and so chose to play with a hickory 2-iron. Close study of photographs, however, suggests that the club Minoprio used was an early steel-shafted model, which makes perfect sense when we consider that Weld was financing things and would provide the best and latest of whatever was required. In 1939, Minoprio had donated her outfit and the club to a museum, and it now resides at the British Golf Museum in St Andrews. This picture of the club clearly shows a metal shaft, and as to the club itself, in a book by Enid Wilson, who was a contemporary of Gloria, Enid states that the club was a medium iron, which would be more like a 3 or 4 iron. This would make more sense as it has greater potential for the variety of shots that Gloria would be required to play. I guess without seeing the club in the British Golf Museum, there's no way of being sure, but I'm almost certain that it was a steel-shafted club that Gloria used. Anyway, on to the on-course video where, as I say, I'm using a hickory-shafted 2-iron. This will be a 4-hole video. I apologise for the fact that it's all going to be voice-overed. I did make some on-course commentary, but the wind noise was very bad and it was hard to understand what I was saying. So this is the first hole, 140 yards, par 3, and I'm going to try and fade my 2-iron in. We'll see how that goes. Clearly I took a little bit too much off that one and only managed to hit it about halfway there. A little bit of prior practice might have been a good idea, but there we go. It looked awful, but it did get on the green. Also, the putting is going to be a challenge. I had a quick practice on the putting green and sort of a gripping down the shaft, slightly hooded face and hitting off the toe seemed to work best. See how we do. A little bit short with the first one. But just hold the second for a bogey. A par 5 next. Theoretically 3 good shots should get me onto the green, but the main thing is to steer clear of the rough and the bunkers. A little down the left, but safe enough. I'd actually landed in the rough. My main objective now was to find a decent contact and avoid the bunkers, which somehow I managed to do quite successfully. I wasn't using a GPS for this, it's based on 1930s play, but using the fairway markers, I estimated I had about 160 to go to the front of the green, which was pretty much an ideal distance. Just a pity I made a complete hash of the shot. 50 yards to the front, a clovery lie, bunker in the way and a 2-iron in hand. Not ideal. But somehow I managed to squirt it out onto the back of the green. Happy with that. I'd have been hard pressed to find myself a longer putt than this one. Let's see how we do. I hit that fairly firm, but the loft on the club seemed to put quite a bit of backspin on the ball and it pulled up quicker than I anticipated. A lesson learnt there. Looking unlikely for a 2-putt. Three putts makes that a double bogey 7. Not too bad. I forgot to film the tee shot on this third hole, but I managed to find the edge of the fairway and left myself just over 210 yards to go, thereabouts. Just trying to nudge it down there, see how close I can get. Another horrendous swing, but it stayed out of the deeper rough. The marker disc just opposite me is 50 yards from the front of the green, so I'm just trying to do a little chip and run with the 2-iron here. And it works out quite nicely, just goes up onto the back tier. That left me with this putt of about 20 or 30 feet down the slope towards the hole. Not bad for pace, but a little bit wide. But safely in for the bogey. This par 4 of 358 yards gave me the best chance of getting on the green in 2, just needing 2 standard 2-irons. A decent tee shot just into the first cut on the right, leaving me about 170 to go. What a shame I made such a pig's ear of the second shot. Having advanced the ball 50 yards, I had about 120 to go. Ugly again, but it did the job, got down close to the green. Just in the first cut, a delicate little chip required. 2-iron, not the ideal club. So I was amazed by that one. And that's another bogey to round off. In summary then, 3 bogeys and 1 double bogey. Pretty pleased overall. In fact, better than some of my rounds where I've used a full set. And I'm especially pleased with the putting statistics, averaging 2 putts per green. Well, a slightly different one this time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.